welcome to Cosmic Connections. I'm Starlene Ryder here with Faye and Christopher. We are doing another one of our videos where we are interviewing and talking to one of the speakers that's going to be present at and speaking at the Cosmic Patterns Conference. The conference is a live in-person conference in March of 2025, and you can check out the details in the description box, like go to the website and such. Today we have Gianni Di Poce here with us. He's a financial astrologer. He is a trader, he's an analyst and an educator, and he is an observer of the cosmos. And we're going to talk to him about his lecture that he'll be having at the conference. So thank you for joining us, Gianni. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Starling. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Thank you for coming too. So I asked this question of most people that we've been, interviewing and such for the conference, but what led you into astrology? And specifically with you, I'm curious about financial astrology because I know you're a trader. Was that first or was it astrology? And like what led to merging the two?
Well, that's the start of going to be, I'm going to try to keep it short, but it can be a long story. So I started off in the financial world. I was in school, studying economics and whatnot, and, doing research on the markets. I was watching it every day and kind of realizing that markets don't move really based on facts and logic. They're irrational, they're emotional, very Neptunian in a sense. And I was reading a book about trading and came across an individual named W.D. Gann. And a lot of financial astrologers have been exposed to Gann at some point in their studies. And so I started researching Gann, read a bunch of his books, and basically put two and two together that the guy was using astrology to make his forecasts and trade the market. So I started doing some research on financial astrology and came across Ray Merriman, as you mentioned. And I met Ray back in 2016. And as I was researching Ray, found out that he lived about 30, 40 minutes from me. So I sent him a note and I said, hey, I'm relatively new in my career in finance. And, well, I guess I was in it for a few years at that time. But I'm exploring new ways to look at markets, and I see that you live nearby. Would you care to meet for dinner sometime? And he said, yeah, let's do it. And this was in July of 2016. So we met for dinner, and dinner went well. And he invited me to attend the ESAR conference in Los Angeles in 2016, and that kind of really threw me into the world of astrology. At that point, I learned a lot that year, and at that point, I'd say the rest is really history. Learning what we have since then, and really just combining it with markets. But I've been under Ray's wing. I am under his wing. And it's been a really good experience learning from him. And we've relaunched the Merriman Market Timing Academy. We did that in 2020, and we've trained, I'd say at least 80 analysts, almost getting close to 100, but we people from all over the world in methods of financial astrology. So we've really been taking this to a whole new level, and it's been very exciting.
Wow, that's amazing. So are most people that go into the Merriman Market Academy, are they normally astrologers, or are they looking to enhance that, or are they traders that want to learn?
Yeah, no, it's really 50-50. I mean, we have people that come in with an astrology background and say, hey, I'm interested in learning about financial markets. I see these astrologers making these calls and forecasts on markets, and sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong. How do we do this? And then a lot of times we get traders that are coming in, they have a background in finance, they've been watching the markets for a while, and they feel like they're lacking an edge. And that's what I think really is what astrology provides, is an edge and a different way to look at time. Because, yes, we are buying and selling based on prices, but prices move based on time as well. And so that's the beauty of financial astrology, is that it gives you another way to look at time that is reflected in the markets as well. So, I'd say it's about 50-50 in terms of the students that we've had over the years.
Now, do you have a particular field of finance that you work in, or are you more on the just dealing with the cycles and everything, or doing that?
Yeah,
What do you?
well, that's a good question. When I first got into the business, I was in wealth management, and so I actually helped people manage their portfolios. But I left that in January of 2020, And since then, I've really just been working with traders and investors. I don't give financial advice. I'm an educator. So I teach people how to look at markets,
Okay.
look at cycles, look at chart patterns, understand the relationships between planetary bodies and the signs. And really just the top down mundane level is, how does the big picture, what we're seeing in the sky, translate to what's happening in the market at a global level? Like what is Jupiter in Gemini mean? Well, it turns out this year the best performing stocks have been communications or technology related. That's very much a Jupiter and Gemini transit. So these are the types of things that we have the types of techniques that we use and we share to help people get an edge.
Okay. Oh, so you're really more of a astrology educator then in the markets. That's what you're doing right now.
Yeah, I mean, I trade. I'm in the markets every day, so I'm
Right,
looking
of
at
course.
stuff all day
Yeah.
every day. So yeah, I full-time
Okay.
trade.
Well, I mean, I would
full-time.
figure you would. That's how you learn, and that's how you get good at
Yeah.
it too. Is you better be doing it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's been, I've
Awesome.
been in the markets now for almost 13 years. So yeah, I
Right.
probably it's probably the first 4 or 5 years that I didn't have the Astro tools. No, maybe like the first 3 or 4 years I didn't have the Astro tools. But
Okay.
once you start to look at the world, I call it like through the natural world. I mean, I think it's all an extension of nature. In reality, humans are extensions of nature. The markets are an extension of human behavior, and so they're extension of nature as well. Is the way I view it. So.
Okay. Interesting. So you're, I mean, for me, of course, everything is cycles. Like in life, I mean, same way. Whether you deal with markets, whether you're dealing with personality, whether you're dealing with everything, it's all about the cycles. And the reality is, there is a ton of cycles, and I guess it's really a matter of focusing on the proper cycles, understanding the cycle, know which cycles to look at, and then being able to interpret, because I mean, and this is where I think a lot of people don't even understand with astrology sometimes, where yes, you have these cycles going on and you're looking at that, and they can mean this, but you weren't looking at this other cycle which was coming in over here, and you need to see that one as well. You kind of see that in just doing relational astrology or any type of astrology. There is cycles upon cycles upon cycles. So and what exactly is your topic that you're going to be speaking on at the conference?
Well, I'm just going to be doing some, fundamental education on mundane markets and astrology, and providing a
Okay.
forecast. So, we give
Okay.
some of the main tools. It's like, hey, here's this power drill. This is how you use it. Here's Jupiter. Here's how you use
Okay.
it at a mundane
So
level when you're looking at
wonderful.
markets.
So someone coming in that's brand new is going to be able to take and get stuff out of your
Oh,
talk. Then.
absolutely, absolutely.
Oh, wonderful.
I mean, I work with traders and institutions, as well. So whether you're just starting off, I think with my time in the wealth management field early on in my career, I sat across the table for many people that come in and say, "Hey, I have this money and I have no idea what the market is. I have no idea what to do with it." So I know how to have those types of conversations with people at various levels, but I also work with some entities out there where it's a bit more sophisticated. So wherever you are, we can have a conversation for sure.
Wonderful. That's good.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
Good.
awesome. And so I'm curious, I know you do the mundane astrology. Do you use it on a personal level too? Do you use it, or you just pretty much stay in the realm of finance?
Yeah, that's a well, I do offer, financial astrology horoscope readings, but I'm very niche. Like I'm not here to talk about, what's going on in your life. I'm here to talk about your business and what's happening, in your portfolio or whatnot. So that is my specialty when it comes to the readings. But I've had some mixed experiences admittedly with that, Starlene, because I've actually had some of the best performance personally in my portfolio during some really nasty transits, believe it or not. And through some of the better ones, I've had some, mediocre performances. So I think, Christopher touched on this a little bit. A lot of it is relational to where you are within the grander cycles taking place in the overall markets. And I think seeing where you fit in those cycles and finding the cycle that resonates with you the most. Do you have a temperament? You can see this in your natal chart, in your own horoscope. Do you have a temperament to be a day trader? Most people don't. Do you have a temperament to be what I call a position trader, someone that trades, with holding or the trader invests with a holding period between 3 weeks to 3 months? Or are you just a long-term buy and hold, set it and forget it? Each of those strategies can be optimized within your portfolio and within your natal chart. So playing a game where the odds are stacked against you is the last thing you want to do. So, if you have a lot of fixed placements, for example, or a lot of earth placements, you're probably not going to be a day trader, right? If you got a lot of mutable, you got a lot of Gemini, Cancer, you're probably going to be interested in the intraday action in the markets, and then we can have a conversation of what that entails. So, I think that's the beauty of astrology is, in the financial world, it's not just like, oh, I have this money and let me just invest it. It's, you have to invest it in a way or trade in a way that is suitable to your own personality, and we're all different. Let's be frank, so
I like that.
Yeah.
So you're not just looking at the astrology as far as the markets, you're also playing with the investor himself, and you're seeing how he fits into the whole scheme of things.
I can, yeah. If
That's awesome. That's more powerful.
Yeah.
If you're always looking for an edge, to me, that's even a better edge. Like
what's the biggest battle is your own self, your own psychology.
That's totally true.
Are you getting too tied up in Jupiter and Neptune when you're winning, and too bogged down in Saturn and Pluto when you're losing? So that's, you got to balance those out.
That's awesome. Well, as a Gemini, Virgo moon, or Gemini rising, Virgo moon, and Pisces sun, very mutable. So
Well,
day trading would be fine.
Yeah. Just gotta be careful when you start winning with that Pisces sun, man.
Yeah. Don't worry, the Virgo moon just nails it down. So
it's good.
Pisces moon get too high.
I understand. I can get caught up there, but yeah.
That's awesome. Really interesting. So do you ever is this, if I'm hearing you correctly, you take the person's chart and then you look at what they might be like and talk to them? Of course, you have that conversation with them, and then you help them along according to that? Or is it more just where they want to go and you don't use their chart? I guess that was my...
Yeah. No, so most of my work, most of the work that I do is more at a mundane level. That's where I feel like most of the demand of what I do comes from. But some people say, they'll come to me and say, hey, I've been at this for a while and something is just not right. I'm trying to trade this way. And then I'll look at their chart and I'm just like, you're really just giving yourself a headache that you don't need to be giving yourself. So you should try winning this way instead of, playing a game where the odds are stacked against you. And that doesn't mean that you won't find success in the markets. It's just, there's a way to go about it where your probability of success will be higher. Because at the end of the day, if you're in the markets to make money. You're not really, I always say, do you want to be right or do you want to make money? Some people want to be right. And believe it or not, when you get into the probabilities, it is a bit of a difference. You can be right less than half the time and still actually make money in markets. You tell an astrologer that, hey, you can be right less than half the time and still be a good astrologer. You might not, be continuing that conversation for much longer, but markets are funny. It's been said mathematics, the language of the gods, but I've kind of modified that into like the odds of the language of the gods. That rhymes a little bit. And I think that, that does really speak a lot to markets. It's a mercurial entity. It's there to trick you, so if it was easy, everybody would do it. And so that's the beauty of astrology, is that obviously not everyone in the markets are using astrology. So you really do have an edge in a different way of looking at reality itself. So I've always found it very profound and enlightening.
That's awesome.
Yeah. That's awesome. So it's great that you're an educator too, because obviously we need good educators in astrology, because I don't know, I just feel like us collectively as a world that we live in, there's not enough of that. I think if everybody used astrology and knew what it really is, as opposed to just reading a horoscope, then the world would be better, just on every domain of our lives, like understanding it. So I don't know. I think that's great, and it's something that you really are passionate about. Can you give me an example of something that happened with you while you were doing trading that was like an aha moment for you? Is there an experience that you could share with us, what that might look like?
Yeah, there's been quite a few. I like to share this example because I feel like it's one that relates more to the average person, and it was in 2020. We came into that year looking for a long-term low in interest rates. And the reason behind that is the synodic cycle that we have between Saturn and Pluto. Both of those planets are very important for debt and interest rates. Saturn rules structure, debt and bonds are the structure of the financial system, and Pluto rules debt itself. So we were looking for a long-term low in interest rates, and I went out and I purchased my home in the summer of 2022, because here we are looking at the Saturn-Pluto conjunction at the time in Capricorn, and hey, interest rates are probably forming a low, so it's going to cost me more to buy a house if I wait. Otherwise, if I get it now, I can get the lower rate and save on a mortgage payment. So that's probably the best example that has changed my life. And I could list off honestly dozens or hundreds of shorter term catalysts, but I feel like that's one that relates to more people, because everyone needs a place to live, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. When I went back on this, I've had my house like 15 or so years now, but when I went back and recently looked at the chart of the time I signed it, so
Yeah.
I took the time and I did the chart, and I realized that I had was it Venus and Mars were conjunct, and also Mercury was like within a degree. I was like, if I could have timed it to be, although those are outer planets, but having it as like a birth chart of the house,
Sure.
it was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
But sometimes you look backwards and you see that and you're just like, no wonder that experience happened or this reason happened. If I would have planned it out, I probably would have planned it to be that cycle, that period of time too. So
Yeah.
that's really an awesome part of understanding astrology, because like you said when we first started, is that it gives you an edge. It gives
Yeah.
you something other people don't have, so that this ability to see it from a lens that not everybody does.
I mean, it's been a bit of an annoying process, I must admit. I'm not going to get into it too much and bore the viewers, but when you get a mortgage, the bank sells the mortgage, and so when interest rates go up, your mortgage value that the bank holds goes down. So my mortgage has been sold like 3 times because the people that keep buying it keep losing money because interest rates kept going up. So like I win, they lose, but then I have to deal with the paperwork and getting in touch with the city and telling them that, hey, my escrow account was with a new mortgage company, so this is why you need to get the property tax payment from another organization. So yeah, I mean, you can win, but they don't make it easy for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So what do you have something that you could share with our viewers that would maybe be a thing for them to look out for if they're trying to benefit themselves? Would you be looking at more of what Jupiter's doing, or would you look at a combination of planets, or how would that work? I'm just looking for something small that people could look at in their own charts that they maybe think about, this might be a good way to move.
Well, I would say if you're looking at trading and speculating in markets, you need to look at the 5th house. That is the sign, that the house that rules speculation, and you need to see what planets are in your 5th house and what planet rules your 5th house if there's not a planet in there. And look how that planet's aspected. Look at the house that planet might be, whatever the Lord of the 5th is, to really give you an idea of what type of prospects you might have as a trader. If it's Saturn themed or Capricorn or whatever, you can still have success as a trader, but you need to recognize that you're not going to have windfalls. It's going to be slow and steady. You're going to have to work really hard and stay very disciplined, and then I don't know, if you even have like Neptune in there, you got to be careful you're not gambling, because that's one of those things too. There's a big difference between speculating and gambling. And I really want to be clear on that. Of course there's professional gamblers out there. I don't do that. And I don't get into that. But speculating is its whole own entity for that matter. So that's what I would say is, for individuals looking to get into trading, you need to look at the 5th house. I mean, if you want to make this as something related to where you're generating income, first and foremost, you need to build quite the portfolio to do so. And then you could look at the 2nd house as well. But I think when it comes to trading, for what most people are coming to the market and what they're looking to do, it's in the 5th house, and you have to see, whether you have favorable or unfavorable placements or transits unfolding in the 5th house.
Interesting.
Well, I think, as coming in and looking at what's going to happen at the conference or whatnot, because you're taking it and you're interpreting it, or you're putting it into the words of the financial world, which is not a world that I like. That's not how I've used astrology, but it's easy to follow you as you're talking. Like, that makes sense. That makes sense. That makes sense. So I think for a lot of astrologers coming in, they're going to be able to get a lot out of it, because it's like, okay, let's interpret it this way now. Let's see it through this lens,
Yeah.
which is really one of the things of the conference that we want to do, is exactly that. It's like, there's many ways, there's many lenses you can look at these dynamics depending on where you're coming from and what you're wanting to do. And so offering, especially for experienced astrologers, even them offering, okay, look at it this way. This is something you can do, and how you can engage that. I think that's going to be a real valuable tool. I mean, it interests me just in hearing you talk. It's like, okay, that makes sense. That the fifth house, okay, that makes sense. Just saying how you're doing it. It's just not something that I, typically do. But
Sure.
Yeah, that sounds really good. And again, you are a really good speaker, in the sense of, it's very clear, you're very understandable, and you're easy to follow. So that's nice, especially in the financial world, because too many people can get so lost in that world. It's like, it can be a foreign language. But just purely the financial world can be a foreign language. Right. Add astrology to that, and it's way foreign.
Well, Starlene can probably attest to this. I don't know if you grew up in Dearborn, but if you were born there, I mean, where I live in Michigan now, it's not exactly, financial capital of USA, right? So,
right.
I never had to go to Chicago because of the internet. If you were a Midwest, individual from the Midwest and you wanted to work in finance, you had to go to Chicago. Believe me when I say I have a lot of friends and colleagues that work in finance, in and around, or, a lot of it's actually moving out of Chicago now, heading to Florida, believe it or not. But, that was the place to be in the Midwest, then obviously New York, but we're in the age of the internet now. This is the age of Aquarius. And so, you trade everything online. A lot of the traders back in the day, they never used charts, for example. So it's like how, like, the ancient astrologers, like, they had to do all this stuff by hand. They had to cast all the movements and all that stuff by hand. The same evolution is happened in the financial world to an extent. You used to have to call your broker. It would cost hundreds of dollars to make a trade in and out. Now it costs nothing. So the barriers to entry into finance have never been lower. It's really, really amazing. And I think with Pluto going into Aquarius next year, it's gonna, not next year, but next month. Right. But the final ingress into Aquarius, I think it's really going to be an amazing time. And then you factor in all the blockchain and crypto stuff. I'm not going to get too into that unless you want me to. But it's
you
really
can always tease on it. That's not a problem.
You read my mind, because I was thinking I need to ask him about crypto.
yeah. But it's just amazing how, similar to astrology, you go back 100 years and it's like only university students would be exposed to that. And it was only like the upper echelons of university students. I mean, even as recent as like 70, 80 years ago, you could argue it was like that. And now with the age of the internet, there's so much more exposure, to the field, for better or for worse, whatever. That's a separate discussion to have. But that's just the times that we're living in now. So you can either use the information and the knowledge to your advantage, or you can sit and be a spectator. And I'd rather not sit and be a spectator.
No, I totally agree with you. Are you still, so you're still up in Michigan then?
Yeah. I'm still in Michigan. It was never really part of the plan to stick around here, but the family's here. So that's where I stay. I mean, I try to spend some time in Europe too, because I got a lot of family over there still. And so I'm mainly here in Michigan.
Nice. Well, you're getting ready for winter, so
yeah, hibernation time's coming in.
Exactly. Wow, so this is so interesting. So okay, now that we opened the box about crypto, what have you done any work with crypto? Because I mean, that is the new way of investing. Right?
Yeah, I mean, I can talk about some really cool quick transits for crypto. It's really amazing. So the two big cryptocurrencies are Bitcoin and Ethereum. And one of the studies that I came across through analyzing those markets has to do with Venus. Obviously Venus is a very important planet for just finance overall and money, but Venus is suspicious when it comes to cryptocurrency markets through two particular transits. So I found over the years that Bitcoin has historically displayed a significantly high probability of exhibiting a 20% or greater move in its price when Venus goes through Taurus. Now, the same thing happens with Ethereum, except when Venus goes through Libra. So I think it's really fascinating how those are the two signs that Venus rules, and you see big moves in the price of both Bitcoin and Ethereum when Venus goes through Taurus and Libra, respectively. So that's probably the easiest example that I can share, and one that you can observe really on a yearly basis, because every year Venus is going to go through both Taurus and Libra, and it actually just happened now. So you had Venus in Libra last month, and you had a 20% move in Ethereum. So you don't necessarily know whether it's going to be to the upside or downside each time. But that's why, we're not just using astrology when we're looking at markets. We're using, pattern analysis, trend following, other studies as well. But just the understanding or the knowledge that, hey, I'm going into this period where a 20% move could happen really does give you an edge.
Yeah.
And not just in crypto, but in any market for that matter. So that's the example that I often share when it comes to the crypto markets.
Okay.
Well, that makes sense too. So do you ever look at the, a chart of the crypto itself or whatever the commodity that you're trading is? I mean, I guess maybe that would give you clues too as to.
Yeah, admittedly, I don't. That's not really my style. There's a lot of astrologers out there, financial astrologers that look at either the first trade chart or the incorporation chart. But when it comes to the commodities, it's like, okay, so a lot of these commodities started trading on the futures exchange like in the 70s or 80s, but they've been around a lot longer. So
yeah, I
don't know. It's one of those things where I like the mundane picture. I think there's bigger forces and bigger cycles at hand. And I think, the biggest cycles, the biggest forces have to do with the outer planets going through signs and their aspects to one another. But I'm more of just a mundane observer, and then combining that with the trends that I see on the charts of the markets themselves.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then another thing it sounds like you were going to do is you're going to do some forecasting also at the conference.
Yeah. So 2025 is going to be an amazing year, just from an outer planetary transit standpoint. I mean, I don't know whether we've had a year like this. And I can't remember, I wouldn't know the last time we had a year like 2025, because, I mentioned this earlier, Pluto going into Aquarius definitively next month. But then you also have Neptune changing signs next year. You have Uranus changing signs next year. You have Saturn changing signs next year, and Jupiter changing signs next year. So, I mean, Jupiter changes sign once a year, but I think you get the idea when you have all the outer planets changing signs within a 12-month period.
Yeah.
I mean, the world is changing. I mean,
yes,
I think, we could all attest to that. I mean, the world changed very, very quickly and a lot in the COVID years, but now that we're out of that, the last couple of years has kind of seemed like, the wheels have been spun, and I don't think we're going to continue spinning the wheels. I think we're going to have a better sense of direction, coming out of next year. So, and the markets are going to reflect that. So how do you prepare for this? Obviously inflation's been a topic of conversation from an economic standpoint over the last few years. Does that continue with Neptune going into fire signs, with Saturn going into a sign? Saturn's a deflationary planet going into the sign of Aries. Doesn't do so good in Aries. So what happens when a planet that rules deflation goes into a sign that it's not doing so good in? Does that mean more inflation? These are all, factors to consider. Right. When you're thinking about your career, your wallet, your investments, your savings. And, these are things that I work with every day and help people understand better.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, it will be exceptional too with Saturn in Aries, because also it will meet up with Neptune too.
Yeah, right. Right.
From a psychological perspective, it's like the seeker of the supernatural, or the divine, whatever way you want to look at it. That's why I would look at it for a personal level, but on a mundane level, it's so interesting, because then we also have Pluto, as you know, as we all know, the moving into Aquarius, which is a total different thing. And the way I looked at it, and I've had lots of conversations with lots of astrologers through the show and plus just life, is how the internet changed us as a collectively was huge. But now we're going into this different era, and we've got the AI machines, all this stuff, and we're going to be changed collectively again, and we don't even really know what that is, yet, because we haven't like seen it yet, but it's going to happen. So it's fascinating how you're talking about cycles too. So do you ever look at the cycles of what has happened with the markets, and like, is that how you come up with it, the patterns in which you will like forecast in the future what you're doing?
Yeah, that's a big part of it. I mean, that was something that Ray Merriman really spearheaded was, cycle studies. And, the thing to understand with the planets is, when I'll give an example of Jupiter. Jupiter can increase demand, but it can also increase supply. Jupiter is a planet of growth, period. Right. But when supply grows, it can mean prices go down. When demand grows, it can mean prices go up. So on its own, I struggle to say that astrology is sufficient on its own, because you can't argue whether Jupiter is in the sign of Gemini now if you're using a tropical zodiac. But okay, what does that mean? And is it good or bad? That's where the interpretation comes in. So it's like, I think Apple stock is overvalued. Okay, that's your opinion. Well, I use this metric. Okay, but that's still based on what? Like based on history, based on now, like there's still an element of subjectivity. But you can't argue, for example, I'll tell you right now, you can't argue that Apple closed today at $231.40. That is an objective fact. So I use like the parallel between markets and astrology. Like you can't argue that, Pluto is in the last degrees of Capricorn now. You can't argue that Apple closed at 231.40 today, but was that close good for the stock, or was that close bad for the stock? Was, Pluto's time in 29 Capricorn good for the world or bad for the world? This is where the interpretation comes in. And, even with AI and whatnot, I was making this comment the other day with someone. Artificial intelligence accounts for knowledge and intellect, but I don't think it really accounts for wisdom yet. And that's where I think astrology adds a really powerful layer for humanity still. I mean, I don't know if you've ever asked ChatGPT to do astrology. It's not very good. So I think we're okay for now on, for the time being. In terms of, astrological interpretations, but it's the same thing for markets, right? Like this stuff isn't going away. It's like the internet in the 90s.
Right. It just
there will be opportunities, to make money, if we're talking about markets with these types of investments. But if you look at how internet stocks and how technology did in between 2000 and 2010, they didn't really do much. But during that time, we all moved on to the internet during those years, right?
Yeah.
So what's happening in the real world in Saturn and what's happening in the financial markets in Neptune,
don't always align.
They don't always align. So you need to know what you're up, because people say, oh, well, the economy is not doing well. Why is the stock market going up? And I say, well, because you're talking about two different things. Like they're a relationship, right? But it's not one for one.
Well, I think too, from, a person's life is really the same way. I mean, you can look at things, you can look at transits. And what I found is, again, if you keep looking, like there are cycle upon cycle upon cycle. And it's like, okay, I saw these 3 cycles and that says this one thing, but I missed this cycle. I didn't look at that cycle. And it's like, oh my God, that's why it did bad, or that's why it did good, because I missed that cycle. And it's just a matter of identifying for me. And sometimes we just don't know yet, or we haven't seen it. I mean, here we're going into an Aquarian age. We're going into Pluto in Aquarius. Okay. Well, we haven't been there before.
Right.
So it's like, what is this going to be like? You can look historically, but now you're reading all the transits and all the movement with Pluto in Aquarius. You have to account for that, as we just come out of Pluto in Capricorn, which, don't tell me that didn't change the world and that changed this country. It was massive. And so all the cycles that go on have to account for that. And like you're saying, I mean, we are about to change that. And yeah, things are going to change. And okay, what does this mean for these other cycles? You're right. You have to see, okay, how are you going to interpret that? And then just again, the other factors we're not even looking at. So very interesting. I think it's going to be, I mean, it sounds like a great session, just getting some education on how to view, again, astrology through the financial lens, which not something I've really done a lot, but just hearing you speak, I mean, I think I can learn a lot just from those sessions, just getting some basic stuff.
I'm gonna expect to see you
I
there,
mean,
Christopher.
what's that?
I'm gonna expect to see you there then.
Oh, you will. That's for sure. It's like just that little bit on Bitcoin and Ethereum, like that. Those are great to look at. You think I'm not going to check all those out now? Absolutely. I mean, it's just interesting, and it gives you something to look at. Like, it's like, okay, I have something to base things on. I have something to bounce it off. So sounds exciting. This is going to be a good session. So
wow, we keep interviewing people that are into financial astrology, and I've never been interested in finance before, but I'm getting interested in finance because you guys are making me think I can do good with money. Like, why not? I have a strong second house, so like maybe that's why. But yeah, that's cool. Great. I think it's awesome. I mean, if we have the edge, we might as well use it, right, to allow us to do better. Yeah.
I would argue you almost have a responsibility to use it if you know how to. So.
Yeah, that's a good point. You do. You owe it to yourself. Do you use any particular, like, I mean, you've talked about signs and the planets moving in signs. Do you use any like harmonic charts or midpoints or anything like that? Or are you more just looking at basic aspects that are going on in the
I try to keep it simple. I mean, I think that there's big enough trends that are plainly evident in market that correspond to various planetary cycles and transits that, I'm not trying to impress you. I'm trying to make you money. That's the difference.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, and if it works, then that's all that matters.
Yeah, exactly.
So if it works,
good.
That's a good tagline too.
Yeah.
If it works, I'm not.
No. I'm not trying to impress you. I'm just trying to make you money. That's a good tagline.
Yeah.
That's it. Wow. So I wanted to mention too your website. Your website is I'm going to say it wrong. How can you say it?
Mercator.com. Yes.
Mercator.com. Okay. Yeah. And so you on your website you offer consultations, or what do you do on your website?
Yeah, my website, I have a couple of reports that are up there for people that are interested in trading bonds and currencies and whatnot. But I recently, I've started taking pre-orders for my book that is at the printers now. It's called Esoteric Economics. I'm really excited about that because it really covers a lot of what we are discussing here today. But I also get into history of economic thought, looking at economic systems, capitalist, communist systems. How does that actually apply to financial markets? Because markets have existed regardless of the systems that you've been in. We look at time, observe time, and I talk about a lot of the people that came before me that I think really left a mark on the field. So that's what I like about it too. I give some practical instruction on, hey, if you want to get started trading, like these are the tools that you need. What does esoteric mean? It's for the initiated. So I'm trying to initiate, the reader into something that actually will be beneficial to them in understanding the economy. And it's all through the lens of, what does nature actually have to do with the economy? I mean, people say, oh, well, in a real free market, okay, well, you think Pluto is ever going to play fair in the economy? I mean, like, seriously, like there's always been manipulation, intervention. There's, there may not have always been central banks, but governments have always been interfering in the economy. So you can't just say like, oh, well, if we just had a free market. Well, no, because if you understand the natural world and you understand Pluto exists, it will never be free. There's always going to be some sort of corruption or what. I'm just using Pluto as an example here, but I think you get the idea. And then I talk about kind of at the end what a system would look like that tries to incorporate some of these natural principles, and then what the next few years might look like. I look at it from generational purposes, because at the end of the day, I think people are what make a country, they what make a culture, they what make an economy, for that matter. And so and I look at it more from a generational lens. So, right now you have Generation Alpha being born. It's kind of crazy that like Generation Z is almost done, right? Now we have Generation Alpha, and it's going to be a whole new crop of people that are going to carry the economy forward. What's their relation to technology going to be by that time? Who knows what AI is going to be like? Are they going to be,
Crazy.
like, it's just like, it's hard to conceive, right? But it's cool, because astrology, like, you can look and speculate and guess what that might be. Whether it's good or bad, there's no way of knowing, but you can see the energies that are coming. You can see the cycles that are coming.
Yes.
So yeah, that's the headline of the website right now. That's why I got into that, because if you go on it, you're going to see that's the topic.
Esoteric economies. That I love the title.
Esoteric economics. Yeah.
Esoteric. I love the title. That's awesome.
A little bit of alliteration doesn't hurt.
Yeah, it's and you say that you're not just you're dealing with the kind of the philosophy too. It sounds like.
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah,
nice.
That's how I started, and then I start, indoctrinating people into astrology. No, I'm just kidding.
Hey, you got to indoctrinate them into something, So it's like, might as well be astrology. I mean, hey, that's been around for so long.
Yeah,
that sounds. But I like that. I love that approach. Just people sometimes will just put the economy or economics in a negative sort of connotation, where it's a factor of life. It just is. You're not going to escape it. So to really look at it from that lens, that sounds fascinating. We'll have to make sure to get a link to that thing too. So
yeah. Well, I'll give you a little bit of a preview of, like, you were talking about the history of and whatnot. I've always found the connection to astrology to be so deep when it comes to the economy, especially in the ancient world. I mean, you have to understand that a lot of these, the temples of the gods and the goddesses, there were priests and priestesses there, and they were money managers. They were controllers of the currency and whatnot too. They were the grain storage houses. Money used to be cattle. That was Taurus, Venus, all that stuff. So if you were a priest of a god or a goddess, back 2,000-3,000 years ago, you probably knew astrology, and you probably had to know mathematics too, and they're all tied together. So you were, setting, okay, farmers, you need to go plant this much grain because we need this much for harvest. And the markets a lot of times happen in front of the temple. So the idea that there's no spiritual or, I guess, like deeper philosophical connection between the economy and what we talk about here in the astrological world, that's just completely untrue. It was all connected, and that's really when you understand and study the ancient world. There was an understanding that it was all connected to one another. I mean, if you have a bad harvest and there's no supply, guess what? Prices are going to go up. You know, so that is connected. And guess what? They used to look at the stars to forecast weather and when the best time to harvest was and all that. So, if you're going to tell me that there's no connection, I'm going to say you're wrong, and you can buy Esoteric Economics and find out why you're wrong.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. It just brings to mind to me, the story of Joseph with the coat of many colors, as he goes in, has the dream of the 7 years of famine with the cow being, I mean, he's doing 2 7-year cycles, one of plenty, one of famine. And he's bringing the purse. It's like he ends up with a high elevated position in Egypt. I mean, this is all, what you're really talking about. I'm
not making this up. It's very well documented.
Oh, it's all there. Yeah,
right.
100%. Yeah.
Well, it makes sense. I was having a conversation that was similar to somebody, and they're getting all into fitness and stuff. And she says, I know that's not very spiritual. I was like, wait a second, but it is, because your physical body is housing your soul. If you want to look at it from that perspective, you owe it to yourself to do that, And so she was like, oh, wow, that's such a good, but it's the same thing with economics. You have to live in the world unless you want to just live in a forest by yourself. You have to deal with it. And so I like how you brought the two ideas of looking at the esoteric world and economics together. So that'll be an exciting book.
Yeah.
Yeah, will you have it out? You said it's at the printer. Will it be out by the time?
Oh yeah. Deliveries are going to start before the end of the year, so I'll definitely bring a couple of copies.
That's great.
Yeah,
You sell it at the bookstore, yeah.
Yes. Oh, good. You
Yeah.
have a bookstore too. Wonderful.
Yes, we will have a bookstore.
Great.
Yeah, she'll bring everything in the bookstore, like have it out there.
Yeah,
So
that sounds good.
Yeah, that'll be great.
I will email everyone, all the speakers, to remind them to bring books if they have books.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, this
Awesome.
was such a great conversation. Thank you so much for joining us today, Gianni. I really appreciate hearing all this information from you and learning from you as well. So this has been a great conversation. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much. It was a real pleasure to be here.
Okay, so we'll see you on the next one, everybody. Thanks for watching, and yeah, we'll see you at the conference too. All right.
I look forward to seeing everyone in Orlando, March 7th through the 9th, for the Cosmic Patterns Conference. Looking forward to it. Thank you.